Hey, welcome back. Tonight I'm starting a new world and just letting myself relax. You can listen, zone out, or just let it run while you drift. No rush, no stress. If you doze off halfway through, that's a win. I'll keep the stories calm, but still a little messy in that Reddit way. Alright, let's get into it. The storm rolled through like it forgot its manners. Not loud, just rude. It chewed the sky and spit out twigs, then dropped one long branch right across my fence. Not a crash either. More like a slow sit. My fence didn't break. It sighed, leaned a little like it needed a nap. The oak on my neighbor's side was old, patient, and probably tired of standing. I stood there with coffee, wearing socks and a brave face. Tried lifting the branch. It laughed. Fine. 2 hands on hips. I stared back like I was going to win a staring contest with wood. My neighbor came out in slippers that had seen things. He waved the wave of a man who already knew what I was going to say. "That tree's yours," I said. He nodded like, "Yeah, so is gravity." He looked at the fence line, looked at the branch, looked at me. "We can split a trim," I said. "Or we can brace the fence now, replace later. Cheaper today, better in spring." I had 2 options, and a third one, which was silence. He squinted at the oak like it owed him money. "My granddad planted that tree," he said. "He also planted that fence." I looked at the fence posts. Not original. We both knew it. But the story mattered to him. It put a small shoulder under his pride. I softened. "We keep the tree," I said. "We respect the granddad. We make the fence stand proud again." He puffed out his cheeks. A slow nod. "Okay. Split the trim. Brace the fence. Spring upgrade. I've got a grill. You bring vegetables. I'll bring the excuses. Deal." We called a guy to look at the branches. He wore a neon vest and optimism. Told us the oak was healthy, but dramatic. Too much canopy on our side. "We'll thin it. Raise the crown," he said. And then he saw my face. "That just means fewer branches to drop where you walk." Good. I like not being concussed by nature. And quick safety thing, don't climb big trees without proper gear or training. Seriously. Call someone who knows what they're doing. We did. The arborist scheduled us for Saturday morning. In the meantime, we braced the fence with scrap lumber and a couple metal stakes. Nothing fancy. Looked like a crutch for a very old friend. My neighbor held the posts while I tapped the stakes in. He told me the fence used to be white. I told him I used to be a morning person. We stood in our shared history like it was a backyard museum. There's something about sweat plus small talk that fixes more than wood. Saturday came with a blue sky that made the oak look like a painting. The crew set lines. The saws started with that soft whir that turns into a growl. Chips fell like snow. The arborist moved through the branches with calm knees and good balance. I made lemonade that tasted better than it deserved to. My neighbor grilled things that hissed when flipped. The smell drifted down the alley like an invitation to eavesdrop. We stacked the cut limbs in a neat, proud pile. Winter fuel. A summer storm paying next season's debt. Mid-trim, the wind picked up. One of the smaller branches swung and bumped the brace we'd built. The fence shivered. I put a hand on it, like you do with a nervous dog. "You're okay," I said to wood, like a person with a normal brain. My neighbor heard me and didn't laugh. Respect. He just asked for the wrench. We tightened a bolt on the middle rail. It squeaked like it enjoyed the attention. At lunch, we ate on overturned buckets. The arborist told a story about a squirrel that stole his gloves once. He'd still like them back. My neighbor told a story about his granddad teaching him to tie a bowline. He used a shoelace and a broom handle, and his patience. I told them about the time I planted tomatoes too close and got a jungle. I had to crawl through to get one cherry tomato. We all nodded. Like, yes, we have all made choices. The oak stood lighter, trimmed, relieved. You could see the sky through it now. The fence, with its brace, stood straighter, like remembering how. When the saws stopped, the silence felt thick. Our corner of the world had been loud for hours, and then it wasn't. The crew coiled ropes, stacked cones, said, "See you in spring if you want to raise the canopy more." We paid. We tipped. They left. The yard smelled like green apples and fresh lumber. We took down the brace and put it back up. We weren't fully brave. The posts still had that lean memory. "Spring," my neighbor said. "New posts. Gravel. The whole thing." I nodded. "We'll paint it," I said. "Not white," he said. "Not white," I agreed. "Maybe a quiet brown. Something that can handle time without making it obvious." Late afternoon, kids biked past in a line. The smallest one rang a bell that sounded like hope. A cloud moved over the sun, and then off again. The oak's shadow made lace on the ground. I picked up a small branch and whittled at it with a pocket knife. I only use on days that smell like this. The shavings curled like tiny scrolls. I didn't keep the stick. The point wasn't the stick. A week later, it rained light and polite. No branches fell. A month later, a windy night knocked the trash bins over. The fence held. The oak let go of exactly 0 limbs. We nodded at each other in the morning, like conspirators. In winter, we burned the stacked wood in a small backyard fire pit. It popped and sent sparks up like short, excited thoughts. We passed a bag of marshmallows back and forth. We didn't say Granddad would be proud. We thought it. It warmed the air by 2 degrees anyway. Spring came around and we did the full upgrade. Not a montage. It took a weekend, then another. We dug deep for the posts. Gravel, set, level, tamp, check, breathe. He told me a joke about his high school shop teacher who claimed wood has moods. I believed it by then. We sealed the boards and watched water pearl and run. No paint. Just grain that looked like it knew stories. The gate swung true with a small click that felt like a handshake. We never put a plaque on it, but both of us know it's ours. Not by deed, by effort. The oak watches like a quiet uncle. We keep it trimmed now, not neat, just respectful. When storms come through, the fence doesn't sigh anymore. It stands, and the space between our houses feels like a shared room, borrowed and returned, always in good condition. That one landed soft, like a pillow you didn't expect on the couch. We're good here. Let's wander to the next mess. The office coffee setup looked like a science fair that never won. 1 chipped jar for sugar. 1 spoon that everyone pretended was clean because no one wanted to know. The sign above it said "wash after use" in a handwriting that had given up. Every morning I'd pour a cup, reach for sugar, and find the jar holding nothing but disappointment and 3 sugar dust crystals clinging to the glass like tiny survivors. No one confessed. No one refilled. Sugar was a ghost who only knocked things over. People started bringing their own packets. The jar grew more symbolic than functional, like a plant you keep watered even though it's fake. That Thursday, I did something petty. Considerate, but petty. I brought in a small glass jar with a lid that clicked. I filled it with sugar and slapped a label on it with my name and a smiley face that didn't mean joy. I set it next to the big office jar. People noticed. You could feel the room. Do a slow blink. I used my jar, closed the lid, and carried on. The big jar sat there, wide open, a mouth with no teeth. Someone came by, lifted the big lid, frowned, and walked away. They looked at my jar. They looked at me. I shrugged like I was born without opinions. By lunch, the big jar had somehow become full. No one admitted doing it. It just fixed itself. I refilled my tiny jar from a bag I kept in my drawer. The bag rustled with smugness. Friday morning, I put a tiny spoon beside my jar. I tied a ribbon around it because I knew it was aggressive. I took my sugar, stirred, and went back to my desk. I swear you could hear whispers over the printer. We'd started a sugar economy, and there was market pressure. People were either refilling the big jar out of guilt, or because they wanted to make a point that community things shouldn't be privatized. Either way, I got my sweet coffee, and the rest of the floor got its dignity back. Funny how that works. Sometimes you fix a group by protecting yourself first. Sometimes that's the same move. Then the sugar thief revealed himself. Or he was revealed by a choice he didn't know was a choice. We had a new guy in sales who always wore a vest like pocket squares might leap out and applaud. He walked to the station, poured his coffee, opened the big jar, scooped, tapped the spoon on the lip like he was playing a tiny drum solo, and smiled into the glass of the microwave while he heated his milk. Then he turned, looked at my jar for a long time. He tapped his foot like he was about to choose a track. He took exactly one scoop from my jar. He looked around as he did it. You don't scan the room for witnesses when you're being normal. I didn't say anything. I just sipped and filed the moment away in the kitchen drawer in my head that says, say something later or don't, your choice. Monday, I printed a small sign and stuck it to the big jar. It said, refill me when I'm low. It's not a test. The grocery store sells sugar every day. This time, the smiley was real. People laughed. Someone added a doodle of a sugar cube lifting a dumbbell. Creativity flourishes when salt levels are right, I guess. For 1 week, the jar stayed full. For 2 weeks, it stayed almost full. By week 3, we were living in a sugar utopia. Coffee tasted like choices. The microwave didn't have milk explosions because someone started covering their cups like a human being. We were thriving. The vest guy stopped taking from my jar after I made mine sparkle with ridiculous stickers like a middle school water bottle. Apparently, the line between available to the common and that belongs to that person is just glitter. I respect that. Then the office manager rolled in a brand new coffee machine. The kind with buttons that say things like latte, even though it's cheating. It had built-in syrup options. The sugar jar's job got lighter overnight. We almost retired it with a party hat. But I kept mine. Old habits, small rituals. One afternoon, I caught finance using my jar like it was a decanter at a wine tasting. I smiled, and they got embarrassed and offered to buy a new bag. I said sure, and they did. And then, and this is the true plot twist, someone put a bag of sugar next to the big jar with a sign that said, refills here, help yourself. Responsibility had moved from the shadows into the light like a raccoon at noon. The vibe in the office shifted in small ways. Dishes got rinsed more. Someone wiped the microwave without writing an angry note first. I got a thank you sticky note on my monitor that said, the sugar thing changed everything, more than you think. That felt dramatic, but okay. I pinned it to the wall like art. To celebrate our new coffee piece, I brought in cinnamon, then nutmeg. I made a tiny spice rack out of cardboard like a child with a glue stick and a vision. I did it because the days were long and we needed small fun. I labeled the jars in my terrible font and drew stars that looked like potatoes. People use them anyway. Thanksgiving came and the whole floor smelled like a bakery. No one fought over fridge space that week. We were full of carbs and forgiveness. One day the power went out. The coffee machine died with a soft click. We all stood around like, well, now what? The sugar jar sat there, full, ready, patient, powerless, but not useless. We made cold brew in a French press someone had at their desk, like a doomsday prepper for caffeine. We shared, we laughed. And if you think I'm telling you the office became a perfect place because of some granulated sweetness, I'm not. Someone still microwaved fish. Someone still printed 48 pages and left them there to grow old. But the edges got smoother. The mornings stopped feeling like a test. Sometimes that's enough. So, yeah, that little mess handled itself. Easy win, no yelling required. All right, Shuffle your chair. We're sliding into the next story. My roommate's friend moved in like fog. No official announcement. Just appeared, then stayed. First it was a weekend. Then, my place has a leak. Then, it's just till Friday. Then, my landlord's a monster. Eventually, he had a toothbrush in our bathroom and a favorite spot on the couch. The couch started to learn his shape. The Wi-Fi sure did. Our internet plan wasn't hero level. It handled 2 laptops, a few phones, and my late-night videos about how to fix a squeaky door without waking the house. Add a third person streaming Ultra HD cooking shows while gaming for research, and the router started to pant. Pages loaded like they were walking uphill in flip-flops. I asked nicely, "Hey, can we limit streaming during work hours?" He nodded like an agreeable bobblehead and then kept doing what he was doing. My roommate apologized in that soft way that means, I don't want to fight this battle without air support. So I tried to be patient. I tried to make tea and be zen. I tried to remind myself I am a guest on a planet I do not own, and the Wi-Fi is a temporary river. But then, my video call froze while my boss was making a joke about budgets, and I looked like I was stone-faced angry at money. Not ideal. That night, I ran a little test. I opened the router page and looked at the devices. There they were. Phone, laptop, console, a mysterious tablet named Beast Mode. I sighed. Why is it always named like that? I texted my roommate. Tomorrow I'm changing the Wi-Fi password. I'll send it to you. Please don't share it with friend until we talk. He replied, okay. Then, thank you. Then, I'll handle it. I believe 2/3 of that. Next morning, I changed the password to something unguessable that still had a little poetry to it. I reset the router. The living room made a sound like a whale noticing a boat. I went to work at the table with a strong silent connection. By noon, friend emerged holding his phone like a wounded bird. Hey, your Wi-Fi's weird. Yep, I said. New password. I'll text it to roommate. He blinked. Cool. He didn't move. Can you text it to me too? I said, the word that contains all the possible answers. We should talk about the plan first. He shifted his weight like he was testing gravity. Plan? I laid it out. Short sentences. Low drama. We didn't plan for a third person. The plan can be, chip in for internet. Don't stream during work hours. Give us a timeline. Or the plan can be, you find a new spot. We like you, but we like our Wi-Fi too. I wasn't mad. I was clear. That's the only trick I know. He nodded slowly. I can pitch in. Cool, I said. 40 this month. Then we see. He sat down on the arm of the couch like it was a bench that could support heavy decisions. Work hours? He asked. 10 to 5, I said. Mute the video. Kill 4K gaming after dinner. Easy. He squinted. After dinner meaning... I looked at the clock that had a pizza slice, where the 12 should be. 8, I said. Ish. He shrugged. Okay. I texted my roommate the new password with a small note. Share with friend after you talk. Let's confirm timelines. Roommate said he'd talk tonight. He did. It was short. I heard the words temporary and appreciate and boundaries float down the hall like balloons. Then a door closed gently. I exhaled in a way that tasted like dust leaving. For a while, it worked. He chipped in. He gamed after 8. I took my calls without freeze frames of my face in mid-blink. I even taught him how to download his podcasts at the coffee shop so he wouldn't stream them all day. He showed me a meme that made me laugh out loud. We weren't best friends, but we were a stable weather system. Then his console started doing updates at random hours. It wasn't malicious. It was just code with needs. I set our router to pause unknown devices from 10 to 5. Not a punishment, just guardrails. He tried to join a noon session. The console bounced off the wall like a moth at a window. He complained at the air. I heard it. I let it pass. One night he asked if the password could be easier. He said he kept typing it wrong. I said, "It's a long word. It keeps you humble." He laughed. That laugh made me soften. I posted the password on the fridge in a code he could read if he paid attention. Every other letter spelled out the real thing. He solved it. He felt smart. I felt like a camp counselor. It was fine. Then came the day he didn't plan for. His landlord actually fixed the leak. A real person with a wrench and an honest invoice. Friend came home with a cardboard box and a look like he'd accidentally signed up for a marathon and then finished it. "I'm heading back," he said, "this week." He handed me a 40, and then another. "For the hassle," he said. "And for the code on the fridge." That was weird. "I contain multitudes," I said. We both grinned at the floor. He moved out in 2 trips. The couch forgot his name. The apartment put its arms down. The Wi-Fi settled into a low, happy hum. My roommate and I had a little living room, meeting without saying it was a meeting. We agreed on a guest policy that fit on a sticky note. 2 nights without asking. 2 weeks with a conversation. Chip in after that. Kitchen closes at midnight unless you're making cereal. It wasn't law. It was kindness with structure. A month later, friend came by to hang out. He brought donuts. He didn't ask for the Wi-Fi. He used his data like a grown adult. We played a game he'd coded himself. It was silly and glitchy and adorable. We found a bug and he fixed it that night. He texted me a screenshot of the comet like a proud parent sending baby photos. The best part wasn't the quiet internet. It was that our place felt like ours again. Not just for mail or sleep, but for being. My room stopped feeling like a bunker. I started leaving my door open a crack and my guard down more than that. We bought a plant that didn't die immediately. We watered it on schedule and named it something dumb. We got the habit of saying, "heads up," before we invited people. We learned we like Saturday mornings to be quiet and Sunday nights to be loud in the soft way. Small things. The things that make a home. I'm not saying changing a password solves everything. Sometimes it's a spark for a bigger talk. Sometimes it's a flashlight in a dark hallway. We used it like a boundary you can see from both sides. It worked for us. If you try it, go gentle. And remember, it's not about control. It's about respect. And don't lock people out of basics without a conversation unless you're in danger. We weren't. We were just making a messy situation tidy. I'll take that as a solid outcome. Clean lines, no scorched earth. All right, new page. Let's roll into the next when you're ready. The dress shop smelled like steamed fabric and quiet panic. Satin everywhere. Pins like small stars stuck into cushions. I was there for a final look before alterations. I said my name. The clerk pulled a bag and smiled too wide. She unzipped. A stranger stared back at me. Wrong neckline, wrong skirt, wrong vibe. It was bridal armor for someone who wanted to conquer Rome at noon. I checked the tag, my name. Wrong dress. I tasted copper. Asked when the switch happened. She scrolled the notes. Mother of the groom confirmed the change 2 weeks ago. Rush paid. My mouth did that slow fish move. I didn't yell. Yelling never unpins a seam. I called my fiancé. He answered with his "what happened" voice. I said, "Your mom changed my dress." Silence, and then a very long exhale. "I'll handle the mom part," he said. "You handle the dress. Good division of labor." The clerk apologized like it was a sport. The manager came out with a folder and a frown. I kept my sentences short. I never authorized a change. I want my original. I'll cover rush. I need a timeline. The manager checked the order history. The notes looked like a tangled necklace. I asked for printouts. I asked who placed the call. I asked for the recorded line they said they had. They suddenly remembered policy. "We can fix it," she said. "We'll bring your dress in. We'll assign the senior seamstress. We'll waive the rush. We're sorry. I nodded. I also asked them to flag my file for client must approve changes in person. They did. Paper and ink are good at boundaries when people aren't. Oh. Then I called future MIL. She picked up smiling. You could hear it. I said hello. She said, finally, address with structure. I said, it's not yours to structure. Quiet. She launched into a speech about timeless shapes and family tradition and how my original would photograph casual. I pictured her adjusting my whole life like a hymn. My sentences stayed small. The original's back on. Please don't touch anything else. She went cool. I only want what's best. I went cooler. What's best for me is me. She hung up like a door that knows it's heavy. Small safety note. Don't impersonate people for purchases. It's illegal. It also breaks trust so fast you can hear it snap. My fiancé visited her that night. I didn't go. He came back with a face like he'd carried a piano across a river. I set the line, he said. She's mad. I said, me too. Then we ate pasta straight from the pot because grown-ups can choose comfort over plates. The shop called 2 days later. Your original just arrived. Come see. I went with my best friend who brought calm like a spare battery. The senior seamstress had hands that looked like they knew how to fix time. She lifted the dress like it was a story saved from a flood. I stepped in. The room went quiet in the right way. It fit like a decision I'd already made. We set the hem. We added tiny buttons down the back that looked like pearls dreaming of being moons. The seamstress suggested a bustle that didn't fight gravity. We picked a veil that whispered. I left feeling taller, even though I was barefoot. Meanwhile, MIL tried a new angle. She texted a photo of a tiara with a caption. This will compensate for the simple gown. I typed and deleted. Typed, deleted. Finally sent. Thanks, but no. She tried again with shoes, then a shawl, then a brooch that could stun a moose. I said no like a metronome. My fiancé texted her separately. Please stop. She reduced her efforts to a low simmer of side comments. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and touched fabric swatches like a person with a sanity plan. Rehearsal dinner. She arrived in a dress that was champagne in theory and white in practice. The room glanced at her, then looked away like it had manners. I took a breath. I walked over. Hey, color code tomorrow is garden shades. Deeper tones photograph best. She smiled sharp. I read the invite. I smiled softer. Cool. I let silence be heavy enough to say the rest. She blinked. Then the corners of her mouth gave up, arguing with gravity. I'll wear navy. Thank you, I said, unclenching something I'd been holding since the store. Wedding morning. The seamstress arrived like a hired angel. She steamed the dress in the corner, while birds outside assigned meaning to sunlight. My mom, who had been staying quiet to keep the room breathable, held my hand and told me I looked like my grandmother when she smiled. I didn't cry. I filed it in my bones. Ceremony time. I walked down an aisle we built out of people. My fiancé stood there, steady as a fence post that knows storms. He saw the dress. His eyes did a soft, private thing. We said the words. We kissed the way you do when you want oxygen, but you want the person more. Reception, navy, everywhere. Mill looked good. She came over, touched the edge of my sleeve, and said, "The fabric catches light." I said, "I know." A truce with conditions. The night dissolved into laughter and cake and a spare pair of sneakers under my skirt. The photographer showed me a shot from the back, those buttons like moons, the hem like a quiet river, my shoulders like a promise I'd written myself. Later, when we were loading flowers into the car, Mill hovered like a hummingbird that couldn't decide which bloom to haunt. She said, "I shouldn't have changed your order." I said no. She nodded. "I like it more than I thought I would." I said, "Me too." She opened the cooler, pulled out a soda, and put it in my hand like it was an apology in aluminum. I popped it. Foam fizzed over my knuckles. We laughed because we were tired and alive. We sent the dress to be cleaned, boxed, and stored. No fairy tale ending necessary. Just a garment that did its job and a boundary that held. I kept the receipt with a note. Approved in person only. It sits in a folder with other grown-up papers. Leases, warranties, a badly drawn map to the venue seating chart. I like that it's in there. It means I get to be the author in ink, not pencil. That chapter finished neat. Bow-tied, pin-capped. Let's pivot, softer but braver, to a dog with opinions. We named him Storm because he was gray and soft and rolled in like weather, loud on the outside, sleepy in the middle. He was a rescue, with a smile too big for his face. He learned sit faster than I learned patience. He learned down, stay, and please don't eat the mail in a week. He ignored leave the socks for sport. The park was his Olympics. Early morning, leash clipped. We'd walk to the field. Dew on grass, birds filing complaints about everything, joggers pretending not to race each other. Kids played on the other side by the swings. Parents held coffee cups like anchors. One morning, a mom waved me over with the confidence of someone who directs traffic for fun. I went because we live in a society. Your dog's name? She asked. Storm, I said. That's scary, she said. Can you call him something friendlier? My kid gets nervous. I looked at Storm, who was lying on his back, kicking the air like a beetle with dreams. I said, that's his name. She did the slow blink people do when they were expecting, of course, and got no. Maybe Breeze? She tried. I almost laughed. I didn't. He knows his name. I'm not changing it. She got offended on behalf of a person who had not spoken yet. Her kid was busy building a fort out of jackets. She tried a new tactic. Storm, she called, bright voice. My dog turned his head half an inch. She tried Breeze. He stared at a cloud like it owed him rent. She tried Buddy, Champ, and Good Boy, which, okay, that one worked, but it works on everyone. She pointed at me like a lawyer with a closing argument. See? I do, I said. He's good, and he's named Storm. I kept my tone soft because names are lighter that way. I also kept the leash short because bodies are boundaries before words are. Safety note, real quick. Always ask before petting a dog. Keep space between kids and unfamiliar animals. Follow your local leash rules, even if you think your dog is a genius. Mine is a genius who chases wind. She huffed. She organized something on her phone angrily. Later, I found out it was the neighborhood group chat. She posted, some people name dogs aggressive things and won't change them thoughts. The smiley did most of the work. The chat had thoughts. One person said their cat was called Thunder and survived childhoods just fine. Another said their kid was afraid of the vacuum. Should we rename that too? A third suggested I name him Bread because everyone loves bread. I laughed at home like a weirdo. The group held a poll because democracy is apparently for everything. Keep the name Storm versus change to something nicer. It wasn't my poll. I didn't vote. I watched it spin like a ceiling fan. Keep the name won by a landslide, which is also a weather term that sounds like trouble, but just means a lot. Someone typed, we don't rename people's pets. Someone else typed, teach your kid how to meet dogs safely. The mom went quiet in the chat, which is the online version of looking out a window for a long time. Back at the park, we did actual work. I taught Storm watch me with treats and patience. We practiced being calm when scooters zipped by like bees with engines. We practiced ignoring balls that weren't ours, which offended him personally. He got a little better every day. The kid watched from the swing. I waved. He waved back with two hands like he was signaling a plane.
One day, the kid came over with his parent trailing behind like a storm cloud reconsidering. "Can I say hi?" he asked, small and brave. I said yes. I asked him to hold out his hand flat. Let Storm sniff, then scratch his chest, not his head. We did the script. It worked like it always does when no one rushes. Storm leaned into the kid like he was plugged into a charging port. The mom watched. Her shoulders dropped an inch. "Thank you," she said. I said, "You're welcome." We stood in the quiet way people do when they are reevaluating a principle they'd built a house around. Storm's tail did that slow metronome swing. The kid giggled because dog breath is goofy. Small twist I didn't expect. Storm loves the word taxes. Don't ask me why. We discovered it when my friend was complaining on speakerphone and said, "I still haven't done my taxes." And Storm sprinted over like he'd heard, "Walk." So now, when he's distracted, I say taxes. And he looks at me like, "How dare you?" And then he sits. The kid heard the secret and got to say it. He said, "Taxes," with the seriousness of a judge. Storm parked his butt like a pro. The kid laughed so hard, he almost fell. I filed the moment under "Joy I Can't Buy." The mom started bringing cut up apple slices for her kid and slipped a tiny non-grape, non-chocolate treat to my dog once, after asking. Storm decided she was 30% acceptable. That's a high rating. She told me she'd had a dog as a teen, but lost him and hadn't been ready to try again. Now she wanted her kid to have what she had, but safer. I said I get it. Grief makes you try to control wind. We settled into a rhythm. I'd call Storm across the field. He'd come. People would flinch at the sound of a weather alert, and then see a goofball jog over like a cotton ball with legs. Sometimes I'd shorten it to sometimes Stormy when I was feeling sitcom. The kids started calling him Sir Stormington because children are great at titles. My dog is now 70% Lord. The group chat moved on to bigger fights, like someone proposed a second bench and the neighborhood went feral. I watched from the safety of not caring. The mom posted a photo one day of the kid with Storm, both wearing paper crowns from a craft table. Caption, "Made a friend. The name is fine." The little heart reactions piled in like birds landing on a wire. One afternoon, Storm found a tennis ball under a bush and carried it like treasure. The kid asked if he could throw it. I said yes, then reminded him to throw short, not deep, because Storm's joints are not built for heroics. We kept it soft. We kept it safe. Family left happy. We left with a tired dog, which is the good kind. On the way home, an older neighbor stopped us and asked his name. I said, "Storm." She said, "Good one." Then she told me about the lab she had in college named Cloud. Apparently Cloud once ate an entire bread loaf without chewing. I said, Storm would like to subscribe to that behavior. We laughed. The sidewalk felt lighter under our feet. Names are a story you tell over and over. Sometimes the story changes the mouth that says it, not the thing it stuck to. Storm stayed Storm. The people around him learned to hear softness in a hard sound. That's the trick with a lot of life. Find the gentle inside the thunder. That rolled to a stop with tails and smiles. Slide your chair back. Refill your cup. Last one today has fluorescent lights and a plot twist. The boss came in like a weather front. Loud shoes. Louder opinions. Said things like, "I don't do calendars. Calendars do me." Which is a threat if you think about it. Took credit for ideas like he was a magnet, and we were paper clips. Sent emails at 11:59 p.m. to prove clocks were afraid of him. His favorite move was blame. If a project slipped, it was ops bottleneck. If a client paused, it was sales dropped the handoff. If he forgot to approve something, it was you should have reminded me. He used the word proactive like a cudgel. He loved meetings where he talked in circles until everyone forgot what shape was. We coped. We made side chats. We documented. Dates, times, what was asked, what was done. And who nodded when? We saved the receipts. Not for vengeance, for sanity. Also because, small safety note, if you're dealing with a toxic manager, keep records. Don't escalate alone. Use proper channels. Don't confront it at night in parking lots like a movie. One quarter, we were supposed to launch a feature that would make clients stop sending spreadsheets. At 3 a.m., our team had a plan. He changed the plan 3 times mid-sprint because he'd had a shower thought. Gut instinct, he said, patting his stomach. We all had instincts too. Most of them said, eat fiber and say less. When the launch wobbled, he scheduled an all-hands called accountability. Everyone brought their quiet rage in a reusable container. He clicked through slides. First slide was a stock photo of a man rowing alone on a foggy lake. That's me, he said. I almost chewed my pen in half. He said we lacked urgency. He said we were too comfortable. He said, I need warriors. Someone in marketing coughed a laugh and then pretended it was dust. I stopped sleeping. I woke up drafting emails in my head that ended with respectfully and then a flamethrower. I did not send them. I did what my therapist once called sane homework. I built a timeline. I added screenshots. I added the words he said to us and the dates he said them and the outcomes that followed like dominoes falling off a table. It wasn't just me. Ops had a folder. Design had a folder. Even the interns had a notes app that looked like a crime wall. We didn't plot. We synchronized. We compared patterns. Dates lined up. It was like finding constellations in a sky we had been told was just dots. The tipping point came in a meeting with the CFO. Boss wanted more budget for a project no one had scoped. CFO asked for numbers. Boss said, trust the vision. CFO raised an eyebrow so high it needed oxygen. Boss tried to pull us in. Tell them how the timelines work. I opened my mouth, then closed it, then said, we can share our delivery data after this meeting. He shot me a look that said, remember who signs your review. I nodded with a face that said, also remember who has the receipts. After the meeting, HR asked to talk. I brought my timeline. I brought my calm. I said, we want to do good work. We need less chaos and more clarity. Here's how this has gone. I didn't call him names. I narrated. HR listened with their whole face. They asked for copies. I sent them. I told my team I'd gone. They said, we did too. Ops said, same. Design said, we've been holding back because we thought it was just us. We weren't alone. That's the brave part and the scary part at the same time. Investigation weeks are long. The air tastes like pennies. He paced more. He pinged at odd hours. He used words like allegedly in regular conversation, which is never a good sign. We kept doing our jobs. We didn't leak. We didn't gossip outside the building. We took lunch in the park. We talked about TV like TV was oxygen. We backed each other up when he tried to triangulate. As a team, we decided X. As discussed on date, we aligned on Y. Never Janet said, never Omar forgot. We chained ourselves to the facts like they were anchors that stopped boats from spinning. Then one Monday, he didn't show. Calendar just said, ooh, no explanation. The office manager did the announcements like a teacher with a surprise. Leadership change, she said. Thanks to boss for his contributions. The email landed 2 minutes later. Corporate said he was pursuing new opportunities. I translated it in my head into 6 different languages, all meaning not here. The quiet after was loud. We looked at each other. No cheering, no chest bumps. Just relief that felt like a fever breaking. The interim manager was a person who said, here's what's on the plate. Here's what's not. She set 2 rules. No more midnight emails unless the literal building is on fire, and no scope changes without a real conversation. Grown-up stuff. Elegant and boring. I wanted to frame the rules and hang them in the kitchen. We had a retro for the quarter, actual accountability. What we did well, what we didn't, what we need. Ops said they'd set a better intake form. Design said they'd start office hours. Dev said they'd publish a roadmap with dates and caveats. I said I'd stop pretending I can do 3 things at once and admit I'm a mammal. We took notes we would read again on purpose. It felt like we'd found a staircase in a house that used to be ladders and traps. 2 weeks later, a few good things happened all at once. The feature we'd been trying to ship finally went live. Customers were relieved, like we'd removed a splinter from the internet. We ate cake at 3 p.m. like teens. The interim manager became the actual manager. She gave credit by name. She sent emails at 10 a.m. that felt like sunlight. I had a one-on-one with her. She asked what I needed to not dread Mondays. I said, clarity, and the ability to say, I don't know, without being punished. She said, great. Same. I left that meeting with shoulders 2 inches lower, and the wild thought that I might stay at this job longer than my houseplants stay alive. We didn't black out his existence. We learned from it. We built ladders out of the mess and put guardrails around the places we fell. HR rolled out manager training with a title so bland it hid its power. Planning and feedback. We snickered the first week. We took it seriously by the third. The air stopped tasting like pennies. It started tasting like coffee that wasn't desperate. I saw him once months later at a cafe. He was wearing a new company fleece and an expression like the horizon. He nodded. I nodded back. We didn't talk. Not because I had a speech saved, because I had moved on, and he had too, in his way. Everyone gets to try again somewhere else. I'm not the judge for the whole world. I barely judge my own laundry. And hey, if you're ever in a spot like that, remember, it's not on you to fix a person with a title. You're allowed to protect your work and your mind. Use the systems. Write things down. Gather. Don't stab. Slow is fast when you're building something that matters. That's it. Windows open, air out, lights soft. If your eyes are heavy, let them close. If not, I'm still here laying blocks, keeping the noise low, and tomorrow's another